Ramadan will soon be upon us in March. Ramadan is one of the pillars of Islam, and it is in this month that the Quran was revealed. To commemorate the month, Muslims will fast. Fasting involves an ethical commitment to abstain from food and water intake, immoral acts, and unsociable behaviors. It is about self-discipline and solidarity with those who have less than ourselves. Ramadan is a time of piety and spiritual reflection, and an opportunity to connect closer with the Almighty Allah, the Arabic word for God, through prayer, fasting, and the recitation of Quran. Fasting commences at sunrise and will end at sunset, and this will take place for 30 days. There is a significance of prayer during this month, and many Muslims will commit to this prayer and the prayer during Ramadan, which is held at night. Today, we're talking about the importance of Ramadan and thinking about some of the cultural perspectives and how, as sports psychologists, we can really support our athletes and even staff members around us who might be observing the month of Ramadan.
Yeah, Ramadan, without a doubt, is a big deal. We have 5 core pillars of Islam, and one of them is Ramadan. So technically, it's 20% of the whole faith. And when we consider that 1 out of 4 people in the world is Muslim, it's a pretty big deal. Approximately 2 billion people will be doing the same thing across the whole world. A month of fasting, a month of praying, and intense activity. So it's a really big deal.
And the significance of that activity, Mo?
Yeah, I think that the Muslim year really begins and ends with Ramadan. I feel like that's the time where people reflect, where they reset, where they really connect with Allah, which is the Arabic name for God. So it's a massive, big community push forward and upwards. And it's a very, very special time, without doubt.
Yeah, time to slow down, a time of piety, right? A time of observing your connection with God.
It is, and the most charity in the world is done at that time as well. So definitely a lot of good things happening then too as well.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. There are some things for us to consider as well with the month of Ramadan, right? What we're talking about here is Muslims around the world, most Muslims around the world will be fasting from sunrise to sunset. And there will be some individual differences with that. We know that the woman through her menstruation cycle will not fast at certain times. And we also know that there are others for medical reasons and individual reasons that may not fast. But in essence, we want to pay a little bit of some importance, or attention rather, to some of the aspects of the fast and how it might impact on one's health and performance. And thinking about this, do you have any thoughts about how that might impact one's health or performance?
Yeah, definitely. There are exemptions for a lot of people, but just sheerly with the number of Muslims that there are in the world, we're all going to come across some Muslim athletes fasting, right? So we're going to see changes in their health potentially and in their performance. So where the health is concerned, we might see a bit more fatigue due to the activity of prayers, an irregular sleep schedule, particularly within the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We might see a little bit more irritability and a bit more solemnness. Athletes might not be as chatty due to being a little bit more fatigued. So there will be some behavioral changes too. When performance is concerned, the research is a bit split. Sometimes we see performance go up, sometimes it might go down. You might see a bit of cognitive impairment just due to the rigor of the month itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you make a good point there that the research hasn't. There's a lot of mixed research on the impact on performance. There's some research that points towards the fact that mean power and peak power might be disturbed. I think what it really says to us, where the research is quite mixed, is for us to really pay attention to individual differences and to pick up on what we're noticing with certain athletes who might be fasting, if there are any changes to pay attention to. When we're talking about how we support athletes, is working together as a transdisciplinary team, right? Because thinking about some of these impacts, what we might want is to collaborate closely with nutritionists,
absolutely.
to think about working closely with some of the S&C professionals, and then thinking about what our part might be to play as sport and performance psychologists. And so I'm wondering if you can share some of that with us, Mohammed.
I think being part of a transdisciplinary approach is going to be really, really key, because as sports psychs, we're already trained within our very specific disciplines, right? But the reality is, as soon as we go in a team, we're one of like 12, 15, 10. There's a lot of people around. And there's a lot of expertise, to rely on. So we need to communicate well with nutritionists. We need to communicate well with the SNCs and exercise physiologists and the coaches to really tailor the support to Muslim athletes, but also their own individual needs. So we just need to be a bit more curious, open our ears, take a few notes, track some progress in the months before Ramadan, observe changes during Ramadan, and just make sure we're communicating excellently with those experts around us, because we might not need to be nutritionists or physiologists. Of course, we're not. We're trained as sports psychs, but we need to know that they have those expertise and just lean into them a little bit more. I think that could be a really good start, at least, to ensure that Muslim athletes do get the support that they need.
Birmingham Football Club have really paid a lot of attention to this and engaged a nutritionist to put together a fasting plan where the athletes are thinking about how they recover after the fast, what some of the proteins, carbohydrates, slow release carbohydrates at the beginning of the day, looking at snack plans through the night, and just putting together something that works, considers the energy levels of the athlete through the course of the day, right? And through training. And that brings us on to another topic, which I was thinking about, is how we might support athletes in their training, and think about adjusting training so that athletes can really still continue to engage in training, but may have more optimal levels just after the fast, rather than, when they are being depleted hydrationally through the day, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That kind of, if we look at the fast in the UK, which has recently been kind of 2 or 3 a.m. until 7, 8 p.m., you'd want to avoid the middle of the day, because that's going to be really bad. And maybe there might not be that many good effects, and it would be overly intensive, it'd be unnecessarily intensive. So a small tweak in the training time, maybe, around the eating time in the beginning of the day, or before or after the breaking of the fast, which is around about the sunset period. You've got 2 or 3 windows there. Out here in Malaysia, the guys train at 1 a.m. in the morning. They flip the script totally. They're sleeping in the day and they're training at night. So there are definite considerations to make wherever athletes are from. And as long as the whole team are on board, everyone understands why they're doing what they're doing, it does make a big difference. So the whole month isn't lost per se. A lot of training gains can be made just by changing the training time and making a few tweaks here and there.
It just reminded me too that what we're speaking about are making some adjustments, which include making available prayer facilities. And those prayer facilities might be within the building, but even to the side of the pitch, right, Mo? Allowing your athletes to jump off pitch. If you're having a training session at the time of prayer, we know that Muslims pray 5 times a day. And for those that don't know, it will be at sunrise, and we'll have the midday prayer, then we'll have the mid-afternoon prayer, we'll have the prayer at dusk, and then we'll have the nighttime prayer, right? And so if you have training sessions at those times of day, you might want to consider how you make allowances for your Muslim players to come off pitch and really engage in their prayer before they get back into the training environment.
And Dale Carnegie said this in his book of How to Win Friends and Influence People. The best thing we can do for people is make them feel important. And just a simple adjustment, a bit of a prayer room, a bit of a space to pray, takes 5 minutes, and it's going to mean a lot to the Muslim athletes. And I think just from the way that we're trained as sports psychs, we don't always have this cultural and contextual information. And I think if I was to say, let's come up with a good kind of a go-to list for new sports psychs who are coming in, or even experienced practitioners as well, there's always 3 words that come to my mind, which are going to be curiosity, understanding, and opportunity. I want sports psychs after hearing this to be curious about Ramadan and to talk to their Muslim athletes. Muslim athletes or whoever's fasting are going to be more than happy to share. Come at it from a place of humility. You might not know a lot, but you can definitely gain a lot. And I would also encourage sports psych practitioners to understand more of the challenges. I would also encourage them to fast if it's medically possible. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, see how long you last. You know, understand what they're going through, because it's going to make you a better practitioner. As always, understanding is going to mean a lot. But also just the opportunity that Muslims, they can't have their fast accepted by Allah if they're unnecessarily arguing, for example, or if they're having, you know, a fit of rage or they're losing their temper. These are classical emotional and behavioral outcomes that psychs can align their own strategic planning towards. So these are really good things to lean into. It's not like, oh, Ramadan is going to interrupt all my psych work. No, it's going to make it better. Use it, learn more about it, immerse yourself in it, and hopefully it's better outcomes for the athletes as well.
If you get the opportunity, go to an iftar party, go to and have the opportunity to eat and break fast with those of the Muslim community. Here in the UK, we have a lot of interfaith iftar parties where and they're held sometimes in the center of London. They close down a street and the street comes alive with an iftar party. Beautiful opportunity to come together as a community. I know that in Malaysia it will be a wonderful occasion to hear the mosques announcing adhan. So anyone who has the opportunity to partake in some of the community engagements during the month, please come and join us. And I wish everyone a Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Mubarak. You're all welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Bye-bye.
Wa alaikum salam.